Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from, and a warm welcome to all. You have joined the second technical session for Module 7, Video Planning and Distribution, which will cover planning for video production, including the use of production templates, as well as the different platforms used to distribute videos. This is the 7th module of the Digital Empowerment Project, a nationwide initiative organized by the 6 U.S. regional museum associations that is dedicated to providing free, self-paced training resources for small museums. This inaugural series of online trainings and resource toolkits focused on digital media and technology topics is made possible by funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. My name is Zinnia Willits, and I am the Executive Director of the Southeastern Museums Conference. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a light-skinned white female with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair. I'm wearing black-rimmed glasses that are often referred to as cat eye style. And today I'm wearing a long-sleeve paisley patterned blouse, and I'm sitting in front of a backdrop of my home office, which consists of a desk and a few computers behind me. As the host for today's session, I would like to convey a few things to our attendees before we begin the program. First, in this era of virtual meetings, when digital spaces may substitute our physical sense of place, it is important to reflect on the land we each occupy and honor the Indigenous people who have called it home. Today, I'm speaking to you from Charleston, South Carolina, the historical homelands of the Natchez-Cusco peoples. Wherever we are, let us acknowledge all Indigenous nations as living communities, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. We, the Digital Empowerment Project team, recognize that our organizations and those of our members were founded within a colonizing society that perpetuated the exclusions and erasures of many Native peoples throughout the United States and beyond. We ask you to reflect on the place where you reside and work, and respect the diversity of cultures and experiences that form the richness of our world and our profession. And now for just a few housekeeping notes before we introduce today's presenter and get started. First, the best place to view this session in real time is on the Museum Learning Hub website under the Watch Live tab at museum-hub.org. Here you will be able to see all the captioning, chat, and others' questions. I would also like to acknowledge today's American Sign Language interpreter, who will be on the left side of your screen, and let you know that captioning for today's program will be embedded in a box just below the YouTube player on our website with controls to adjust your experience. Our captioner is right on time and is ready to go. The best way to continuously refine our programs is to listen to our attendees, and we ask that you share your candid feedback with us. Following today's program, you'll be sent a link to a satisfaction survey. Sharing your experience through this survey will only take a few minutes and will greatly improve our work. We encourage you to pose questions to our presenter, which will be addressed at the end of the program after the presentation. Please type your questions in the chat, and a digital empowerment team member will be gathering them. We will address as many questions as time allows. However, we may not be able to get to all the questions, and others may arise after reflecting on a program. For this reason, we have set up an online community forum for raising questions, posting answers, and connecting with your fellow museum practitioners on the Museum Learning Hub website, which again is museum-hub.org. If you are looking for help in between programs, please visit this forum, create a login, and post your questions. A member of the community or one of our student technology fellows will get back to you. Finally, to stay connected with us and be aware of future programs, please follow us on social media. Now it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Elena Valentine, the CEO and co-founder of Skill Scout in Chicago. Elena is a storyteller, researcher, and teacher. Elena's essential intent is to be a wind for others to become their highest and best selves by owning their stories through the medium of film. As the CEO and co-founder of Skill Scout, Elena supports how companies foster a storytelling culture in their organization by creating powerful films to engage candidates and employees alike. As the co-founder and board president of Mezcla Media Collective, she also works to uplift a hub of over 650 women of color filmmakers in the Chicago area. I've enjoyed getting to know Elena, and I'm thankful for the time she has devoted to this session. Now I'm pleased to turn the floor over to Elena Valentine to begin our session.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I will wait for my presentation to show up here, I believe. But until then, I am coming to you live from Chicago very proudly and with a lot of acknowledgement and gratitude to the ancestral lands here that are the Ojibwa, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. And so let's get started. So I don't know about you all, but I recently, as of last year, came across Cowboy Tim. Cowboy Tim Send, the security guard that I, and soon to be the world, started to learn more about the National Cowboy and Museum Heritage Museum. And among many other things that I came to learn about Cowboy Tim and about the cowboy culture was everything from the Stetsons and True Grit to the other cool exhibitions that were happening around Dorothea Lange, or even Woody. But inevitably, what was so fascinating about Tim Send at a time during the pandemic, et cetera, was just how amazing it was to really understand and see and feel the value of these small and regional museums across our nations, the incredible stories they could tell. And quite frankly, look, Tim Sen was both irreverent, he was funny, and even more so, you could see both his passion around this and also just the stories, the incredible stories that are coming from all of these. And the truth is that you all committed your careers to preserving this history, to preserving these stories, if it's from cowboys to Native Americans to everything else in between. Inevitably, it was really all about the feels. We really got to understand the feeling and the pride and the learnings of the National Cowboy Museum through Tim. And it didn't even take a ton of money. It was photos. It was just, very quick hit videos. But truly, the power that we have in video is being able to connect in such a meaningful way across these digital spaces. And that is what we are here to do today. I'm probably an odd lady out of many leaders who have joined this series who work in museums. I do not. I am the proud servant leader of a production company called Skill Scout Films. And our essential intent is we research, we film, we celebrate jobs, celebrate the world of work through the power of film. And we have worked with companies and organizations, large and small, in many different languages, working even within the disability community, the blindness community, from narrative audio to the deafness community. And so really being able to see the wealth, and inevitably what we learn, regardless of how large or small, regardless of the industry, is that every organization has really unique and powerful stories to tell. And that video is a way by which they can do that. And so certainly, while you all are very much the experts of your spaces, of the field by which you are all in, I come to you having been able to help companies large and small help scale video across their organizations in a plethora of different ways. But certainly, fun fact, my first job, I was a dancing and singing dinosaur at the age of 15 for the Field Museum. So there's definitely that. And even then, I knew the power of the stories that are in these buildings, and even more so the challenge that we have now of bringing those stories out to attract new audiences, new generations, and the new generation of patrons to the museum space. And so the things that I share today, I welcome to crowdsource this. I'm very much all about live chat engagement. And so if there are things that you're already working on when it comes to planning and distribution, I welcome that so that we can all learn from each other. So a little bit about some of the kind of the framing that we're working on today, particularly around planning and the distribution of film. So my colleague and co-founder Abby likes to say that film day itself, like the production day of filming, which I know my colleague Luke in the previous series had gone through, was around production day. And she always loved to say film day is like birthday party day, right? It's a really fun day. It's an engaging day, whether it might be working with some of your visitors or your staff, right? It really is a fun time. That all being said, without planning, that production day could also turn out to be a little bit of a birthday party fail as well. And so the more that we can do to think thoughtfully about pre-production, it really is kind of the heartbeat in the base for how we have to think about how we are setting up the rest of our video project up for success. So that is in part half of the presentation that I will be going over, just some tips, tricks, although very quickly, around kind of ways to at least think about planning, the mindset, some approaches. And then also, okay, once we have these videos, how can we get more eyeballs around it? How might we kind of distribute this thoughtfully, do it in ways that might be low budget to no budget at all? So I do have some perspective around this, and certainly, again, because of timing, some specific perspective, particularly around the kind of Gen Z generation. So just a little bit to kind of think about, because this is really important when we think about video. And I have the theme around birthday cakes, right? So when we think about the layers of a typical video, now mind you, this doesn't have to be all the layers, but kind of the base might be the interview. So who are the talking heads? What are we actually hearing, right? Then the music. The music helps to set the pacing. It helps us set the tone. Are we going for something a little nostalgic? Are we going for something a little snippy? And then the B-roll, which is, technically what's kind of the visually rich way that we can bring to life what that speaker in layer one might be saying. And the truth is, right, sometimes the standard layers of a video may not even lead layer one. Maybe it's just music and B-roll, which were some of the examples that you saw in Luke's videos examples in the last series. But just this kind of gives you a sense. And there's many different ways by which we can approach video. And in our case, and kind of this is how I'd like to set up our mindset in conversation, there's kind of the production light, right? Where, hey, we're using these very powerful phones in our pockets, or kind of more affordable DIY-ish ways. And then there's full-scale production, right? Where you might be bringing a crew in to help kind of support. And so part of it is also getting the mindset of when might we use one over the other. And so in this case, for our time together today, let's think about this as level 1 type production or level 2. And I'm sure already, hopefully you all are kind of already thinking about, all right, this is where we might be a level 2 bucket, level 1. So I welcome you all to kind of bring that experience and mindset into this. And so kind of given all the work that we've done, there's a couple of kind of fun considerations to think about when you might, in your planning phases, why you might go to one or the other. Although I will say many organizations do both. I'm quite frankly sure that you do as well. So a couple of reasons, kind of the considerations when we think about a level 1 production where we might be using a smartphone, for example, is look, budget friendly. Maybe you are trying to tell more video stories more often. You want to be able to update these videos, which is something that can happen much more readily when you're using something like a smartphone, for example. You can capture things that are a lot more in the moment and user generated. The reason why this might be at a disadvantage pending generally is a lot around your team capacity and capabilities, because even with something like this does take a little bit of time, right? There's a bit of planning involved. Certainly consistency, especially if you might be working with kind of a marketing department that has some pretty, tried and true or very kind of hard kind of restrictions around how your museum brand is to be shared externally. Certainly, we know that part of the big challenge here is also around editing. Now, I know my colleague Luke in the previous series talked about some free editing tools, but look, let's be honest, editing is a pretty heads down, Experience. It does take a lot of time, especially if we're trying to interweave plenty of stories and thinking about that full layer cake. And we know how challenging that could be, again, pending the capacity. And then certainly there's that time, as I mentioned, and the structure, especially if we're trying to tell this more often. A lot of this challenges that we see in companies trying to kind of take this up without support is just kind of a level of structure that they can have in terms of how they're able to scale this. Now, in terms of a level 2, right, where maybe you might be bringing a crew in, a lot of the advantage around this certainly is time. Maybe you have a fast timeline, you're trying to get something done, being able to certainly have that support. A lot of the reasons why organizations typically might go for kind of a full-scale video production has everything to do with shelf life or how kind of mission critical this might be to the organization. So things like perhaps or like kind of foundational values, for example, where that story may not necessarily change over time, typically is when you might go to kind of a level 2 to provide some additional investment. And then, of course, you have the consistency because you have professionals who can come in and really ensure that your marketing brand is taken care of. But look, considerations, I'm sure you all know this, it's budget and glossy, especially sometimes on social media, can be seen as inauthentic. We have a lot of folks, especially of a younger generation, who see this kind of more raw video, maybe from a smartphone capture, as being more trustworthy. So when we think about film project flow, for example, right, we're going everything from the kickoff and discover to pre-production, production, post-production, then share, AKA distribution. In our case, for kind of our time together, we're specifically going to focus on kickoff and discover, which I think inevitably is so crucial here, right? We have to be inspired. We have to come in this understanding and knowing a bit of what we want. What can the ideal vision be? And then, all right, let's get to planning it. So I'm going to share this around then. And then around a little bit around sharing and distribution. So the first thing around this is just inevitably it's thinking about, what is your audience actually wondering about, right? What are those FAQs? What are those questions that you are constantly repeating yourself around? That is typically when folks ask us, where should they start? It's often there, right? What are the questions that you're repeating yourself on that even with a video could really support how your audience, be it your visitors, be it patrons, can really help to understand and engage with the museum? And there's all kinds of questions, right? Everything from what might a typical day be for a staff member? What are the upcoming exhibitions? What are the top pieces in a particular collection? But certainly, especially for some of these key videos, right? There's a call to action here, right? What are the benefits potentially becoming a member, becoming even more involved, right? That's a lot of the questions we want to help answer for some of our audiences. But this just might be a way to really kick off and think about, again, what might be some of the key topics we'd want to focus on first when it comes to video. And let's say you don't know, I'm happy to share this with a few folks if you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn. This is an exercise called empathy mapping. And certainly as a former design researcher, this is something that we do all of the time just to get our headspace around who is that actual audience? What are they thinking? What do they feel? What do they do? What do they say? And a lot of what you'll find when you're doing this are you'll already start to get to see and understand what might be some of those key topics we will want to get to, kind of having that full breadth of who the audience is. And then the question we often get as well, and this is why I showed you some of the considerations around a level 1 or level 2 video, is when do I choose? And certainly there are some kind of key questions around, all right, are there any critical compliance legal issues that we might come across? So pending if you are, going in potentially on a busy day, or you might be capturing visitors, I'm sure some of you already kind of know what might be some of the legalities, media agreements, et cetera, that we have to think about. But inevitably, when we think about a level 2 or level 1 video, it's typically around, all right, what's the staff capacity at the time? What's the staff skill level? And what's the budget? And so inevitably, despite me kind of sharing level 1 or level 2, we have many, great videos that are being done on both sides on the same topics. And so even though I'm sharing some of this stuff, you might be capturing these videos in a different way, maybe even an affordable way than what I might be sharing here. And that's totally okay. This is just giving you the full breadth. And a couple of ways to think about this as we've, worked with other organizations is I kind of have like, a couple of different 2x2 frameworks that if you wanted to take your team through. But one that we always typically see kind of on that horizontal frame is, all right, is this really absolutely top mission critical to our organization? Or is this not critical with, hey, budget or no budget? So if we think about, all right, an annual fundraising campaign, maybe there's a special guest that you have partnered with or collaborative with, very mission critical. You might have some budget. This is where you might want to invest in a level 2 video versus maybe this is just an everyday happenings. That might be something that you might want to put on as a level 1. The other one certainly is then, is this not only critical or not critical, how simple and how complex is this, right? So there's a difference between just a B-roll only music video versus we're interviewing several key folks and we're on a really hard and fast timeline and we have to grab, X number of type of footage, et cetera, et cetera. So once again, just the complexity of all that, this is typically where organizations are thinking about whether or not this is a level 1 or a level 2 video. And so now let's just assume, okay, we're thinking about how we actually build this plan. Part of it is thinking about the mindset, which we've kind of gone over, the senses and the action. So what do we mean by the mindset? So for example, if visitors are kind of that main audience, as I mentioned before, it's what questions are visitors asking the most? And this is what I love that we don't think about enough, which is why we can leverage video. What might surprise visitors or your audience overall, be it positive or negative, that they should know about? Because the power of video that we have is that we can demystify some of this by being able to show and tell and get our audience to emotionally feel. And now, now that we've selected this topic, what are the top, 3 things a visitor must see, hear, and feel? And this is really important as we're going to start to go into the plan. So what do they need to see? AKA, what's the shot list? What might we need to hear? AKA, what are the interviews? What might they be speaking about? What do we want them to feel? Do we want them to feel excited? Do we want them to feel nostalgic? And then certainly for videos like this, it's the action. What do we want our audience to do after seeing this video? And here's what that could look like in practice, especially if you're trying to engage several stakeholders. So in our case, a lot of the times we might be working with clients on a video job description, bringing a job to life. And so ways that we can engage these initial stakeholders in this discovery and planning process to help us understand, all right, who might be featured in this video? What are some of the top specific tasks? What do we want this video to convey? This is just an example of a template form that we have created that really, number one, allows for multiple stakeholders to be involved without, wasting a lot of time. And so being a lot more efficient with that, especially in the planning process. It allows you as kind of that video kind of holder, video leader to quickly align on the plan. And absolutely, it really helps to ground pre-production planning meetings and quickly align on that plan. So when you're thinking about your videos, what does that look like for you? The other thing I also wanted to share, now mind you, we do video at volume a lot. And so what we've done is we create surveys that we can walk our clients through. In this case, this might be your colleagues, your employees, to kind of help kind of crowdsource what might be some of these key themes, what might be some of the things we'd want to see and hear. Again, this is all part of the discovery process that is really going to help ground our plan. So a lot of what you're seeing here is, number one, things like, okay, what are things we can share or not share? So this is hugely important that you might want to share with, folks that are, knowing much more kind of the compliance and legalities around video, areas that we can share, that we can share. This is also where your stakeholders might be able to provide some inspiration, which I completely encourage in terms of when we ground the planning process. So it's a bit of an example of kind of how these forms, these structures by which we can involve multiple stakeholders and do it in an efficient way that doesn't drive us nuts, so that film day can be like a birthday planning day. And so, a lot of the stuff that we do, especially when we're working with clients around, supporting their videos in smartphone, is we call it a video recipe, AKA a plan. right? And so inevitably, this is kind of almost the field guide, if you will, of everything that I'd shared around both the mindset to the questions to what we want to be able to see, aka the B-roll. And this is typically what you might want to have in your plan, especially if this is involving folks outside of yourself, right? If you need to communicate this. And so what we have here is actually kind of a very helpful template that both gets shared with folks that our clients might be interviewing, but also is a very helpful guide even to the person that's running them. And so the key components are everything from why we're making this video, how to capture great footage. Now, this is certainly if we are expecting them to be filming as well. This is where we're trying to provide some of that consistency. A couple of key tips around before you begin. So one perfect example is even before you're deciding this, you need to kind of think about, if I am crowdsourcing clips from multiple people, where will they be uploading? And how do I make sure that, they're not experiencing any challenges around the upload process, the interview questions, and the B-roll clip. So that's just one example, visual example for you to share. This is actually something that we just trained a team out in Connecticut, and they have captured several of their colleagues with this that they'll produce a video for. Now, on a more kind of complex level, when we think about that level 2 video, maybe this is, for a fundraising, maybe this is outreaching for donors or special guests. On our side, we do something that is called kind of a 2-column story outline, right? So what do we want to hear? What do we want to see? And so what you'll see here is almost kind of what we envision as a story flow. So what does it look like from beginning, middle, end? What are some of the key themes that we want to touch upon? And then it's, okay, what are the things that we might need to collect or capture so that when we do create this field plan for this kind of more larger level 2 type video, again, we can make film day truly like a birthday party day and not a birthday party fail. This really helps to direct. And what I would do, if you all are thinking about kind of this kind of 2-column story outline, this makes it very easy for your stakeholders who may need to weigh in and approve and do that very quickly, so that, again, we are minimizing any surprises that might come up on film day. Because what can happen is when this doesn't get communicated in this way and you capture all this great footage on film day, and then you realize that you weren't compliant, or you realize that you missed a whole theme. This really helps to align multiple stakeholders without having, again, to have invested a whole bunch of time and money in this film day. And so what this might look like, so if we looked at the video recipe that might be kind of for a more simple type video, this is kind of a standard, what a field guide might look like, which could include everything from background to location, which certainly could be your museum or community. But here's where, all right, what are the questions that will get us to that story outline? And then what's the schedule, right? When you are working in looking to interview maybe several people across your organization, this is where having a field guide, once again, to align folks is helpful. And then what you'll also see here is what are the visual references, so that be it for yourself or for your film team that maybe you have hired or not, this really, again, helps to align everyone on what should this look like? What should this feel like? And based on that 2-story kind of outline that I shared, which was for one of our clients, Get Cities, I'll share a little bit of this. All right.
I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and I lived there for 22 years prior to relocating to Chicago. And people always ask me, why? Why would you trade? Why would you trade Arizona for Chicago weather? But it's like my soul city. Like, I love the energy and everything about it. My professional life prior to Get Cities was construction project management. I was showing up to construction sites, literal boots to the ground. It wasn't necessarily what I loved. And I found myself more interested in, tech related subjects in Get Cities in contrast to my experience in the construction world. One of the most obvious and glaring differences is the diversity and of the people that I'm surrounded by, and you don't even realize the psychological effects that being one of one have on you until you are no longer that person and you don't feel so isolated. When reading into the description about Get Cities, it seemed like it was targeted sort of towards individuals that were already in the tech industry. And I was still in construction at the time, but I said, what the heck? This would be just strategically and interest wise would be really good for me to be around people that are in that field. My team united over the understanding and agreement that there is a pipeline problem, there is an exposure problem, and a lot of women, marginalized genders, have to work harder to get into the tech space. It's not an easy space to get into to begin with. And then there are a lot of additional barriers that we have to face. Our project is geared towards trying to unclog the pipeline for a more diverse set of individuals. My affiliation with GET has not only helped me develop professionally, but just educationally in terms of different scopes of inclusion. As I'm part of this community, I'm sure they understand that I want to be an advocate for more people to try and get into this industry that look like me. And so people reach out, and a lot of people ask, like, how did you do it? I don't even know. I am trying to articulate that and serve as a resource for people that are trying to do the same thing that I did.
And so, all considering, despite the moving parts, what made this production day like a birthday party day was the fact that we did align pretty heavily and very efficiently with our partners on that 2-story column outline that both allowed us to align on, all right, what's exactly the shot list and what are the questions that we will be asking Brianna in order for us to get to the flow that we have all confirmed. And so that is what we are able to do when we know, all right, we have confirmed and aligned on all the puzzle pieces. We are capturing for the puzzle, and then it becomes a sweet deal for that editor, whether they're in-house or not, to be able to actually put that puzzle together based on what you all have envisioned. That's what that can look like. Production day can feel like flow if we put the proper planning and structures in place. And so now moving ahead to kind of the second piece to this presentation around distribution, AKA getting more eyeballs to this video. So, okay, you've got this video, you're proud of it. What do we do with it? And now, mind you, given our very limited time together, I will specifically focus on Gen Z generation, just putting a stake in the ground so that we have some kind of focus and case study here. And so here's a couple fun facts to throw out at you as we are thinking about, all right, how might we share this video? Because a lot of this does depend on generationally and where your audiences are hanging out online. What are the digital sandboxes they're playing in? Some of this might seem obvious to you. I'm sure some of you have children that very much fit squarely into this. Certainly, number one, 85%, if not more, of this generation is going online and on social media to learn about new products and new services and offerings. And we've all got short attention spans. This is not even just on Gen Z. We have the attention span of goldfish, which means we've got 8 seconds to capture a candidate's attention online. And this generation specifically, they watch a ton of video, at least 3 hours a day of video. And again, this shouldn't surprise us that over half are part of a minority ethnicity. And so this is kind of the framing by which we can kind of, at least in this, point, start to think about distribution. And just sharing a couple platforms, the kind of the popular platforms here when it comes to Gen Z. YouTube is huge. YouTube is the second largest search engine. And in fact, video is the largest driver of internet traffic at this time. So YouTube is huge here. And it's true. What we saw is, look, if you've got folks going to YouTube to learn how to braid their hair, get tours of the White House, they're going to YouTube to learn about everything else, including you. A couple of other big ones, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all of you have heard about this. Interestingly enough too, though, text messages. And there are some apps by which, pending the level of information that you do have from your visitors and patrons, et cetera, being able to share messages and things via text, which is a preferred mode of communication. So, number one, when it comes to distribution, there's a lot of things that you can get. Now, mind you, a little caveat here. I am not talking about paid ads. There's entire workshops and everything that we can talk about when it comes to SEO, search engine optimization, et cetera. But again, some of the key tenets that I think can really move your video just even a level up is just getting smarter on how you can make your video searchable online and easier for people to find and to view. And someone I would highly recommend in this space who is quite a teacher is Neil Patel. I would recommend all of you to look him up. He has some incredible things, even that might even help to drive more traffic to your websites, but he has some very helpful guides and videos around how to use hashtags on YouTube, YouTube SEO, quickest way to rank. So first of all, when you have this video, number one, you are uploading that to YouTube and you are ensuring that you are able to also put the right video description and the right hashtags, again, to kind of make it much more searchable and kind of fit within the algorithms of some of these places. Another tool I would recommend, we even use this here for Skill Scout, is Jarvis. Go on it right now. It is an AI service that actually helps to kind of write options for what YouTube descriptions might be, even from blogs. So my friends over, for example, the Jane Addams Hull House Museum here in Chicago, I just happened to just very quickly put a couple of things into the tool, an overview of our museum, keyword to rank for, Jane Addams, what's the tone of voice, nostalgic. And I just got several different options. Now, again, some of this could resonate, some of this may not. But we all love good templates. We all love to be able to react to things as opposed to have to just come up everything with off the dome. So I would very much recommend Jarvis and thinking about what are we doing to ensure we are creating great descriptions to help people find your video online, get more eyeballs on your video. That's number one. The second one, and this is interesting, and I love seeing this. We've seen this in a number of different spaces, is ways that you can collaborate with micro influencers who have very, very engaged followers online. Micro influencers are typically folks that have anywhere between about 10,000 followers to 50. So it's not like they're kind of at this Kim Kardashian level where each post she's making several $1 million online. I mean, there's a lot of really cool ways that folks can collaborate with micro influencers where a lot of those interests and passions really intersect. And look, you are a museum. There's a ton of reasons and benefits that they could have from aligning with you. And so sometimes there might be a financial exchange, but sometimes not. Sometimes there can be a great barter. So a couple of examples where this could work, I'm thinking about, my local museum, the National Museum of Mexican Art. Think about Lupita Reeds, who is a micro influencer all around, really sharing books, particularly around Latino authors. And so imagine ways that, well, one, Could they collaborate on content? Could Lupita be part of a video campaign? But even more, could Lupita be someone who can drive your content and support how your content gets shared to people who actually care about some of these topics at a very deep level? And there's a lot of applicability, because we could even think about Lupita connecting with the American Writers Museum, right? And if we're thinking about, Latino Heritage Month, what are ways, once again, we can align with these ambassadors who have very similar followings, similar passions? This is where you could even search these relevant hashtags that some of these micro-influencers might be using that you should be using. So there's a lot of learning that we can have just in engaging some of these folks who want to be engaged with you. There's a lot of reasons why, again, being connected to a museum, being connected to the work that you do really benefits them and benefits their followers. And it could also be a very affordable way to be able to drive more eyeballs to your video and inevitably just get more engagement for the museum. Another one, I'm huge on this: recycle and repurpose your video content. So what do I mean? Look, you have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort creating this beautiful long version video, and I'm just making this up right now, a fundraising video that's 3 minutes long. Well, great. I'm always thinking about 3 to 5s. So what's my long version, but also what's my 60-second cut? What's my 30-second cut? How might I revise my social copy so that, I don't keep sharing out the same video and the same messaging over and over again. So there's a lot of cool ways, even within our distribution and certainly pending the platforms for this, where we're going to want to keep content shorter, or we might want to have a reframe in terms of the kind of story we're looking to tell from this particular video based on the platform that you're at. But I would definitely say when it comes to distribution, you should always be thinking about videos in a series, not one video, but how can you just squeeze and maximize the kind of content you have with just the hard work you've put into creating this particular piece. The other one is aligning your content calendar with holidays and relevant events, right? So when kind of folks are really paying attention, be it to, we just had Indigenous Peoples Day, Columbus Day. And so, certainly there's a lot of ways that you can ensure that your content might really hit and resonate, based on particular holidays or particular months. This is just an example, when we work with clients, we're typically sometimes working with them on an annual basis. And so as an example, I'm sharing of a company who is in kind of the health and wellness space where, all right, they're not only thinking about, what are some of their hiring cycles, right? So for you, that might be around kind of fundraising cycles or other things that are happening just throughout your year that are just kind of baseline milestone. But even thinking about, all right, some of their kind of DEIB, the diversity, equity, inclusion, so Asian Heritage Month, et cetera. But also thinking about some of the key holidays that are just relevant to health and wellness. So Stress Awareness Month, Breast Cancer Awareness, Mental Illness Week, et cetera, Sleep Awareness Week. You know what that would be for you based on some of those holidays. And let me tell you, there are a ton of both kind of national celebrated holidays. We all know there are state, citywide holidays. And then there's just some general, I didn't even know a holiday like National Mountain Climbing Day or National Tell a Joke Day or Bad Poetry Day or National Potato Day even exists. But these are kind of fun things that folks are looking for, that folks are following. And if you can align your content that is relevant to some of these holidays, you also kind of have kind of more of that opportunity to be able to get more eyeballs on your content that is relevant to folks that are following that same thing and have similar interests. But inevitably, and the truth is, your secret weapon, it's your network. And in some ways, this feels so simple, but you would be so surprised how many of us just don't follow through with it. How many of us have a video and we just send it off to our, social media, person in our department without actually potentially composing an email, providing some sample messaging where all of your network, being it your colleagues and employees in the actual museum, to folks that you know really care about this, that you're close to, that can help you drive this forward. And we see this happen time and time again, right? This idea that if you can upload this, you can get that organic traffic, you can build that initial momentum just by activating your network. And you do that, one, by not just sharing the video, but providing social messaging copy for easy sharing. So anytime we share a video or we're working with clients, we're saying, okay, not only here's the video, develop 2 to 3 social messaging copies that you're sharing. This makes it really easy for folks to help share for you. Obviously, invite as many of your colleagues to participate, but here's what's really cool, especially if you are looking to engage some of your colleagues in the actual video making process or being even a video star, which I would very much recommend. Now, I know there's some that maybe might be afraid to be on film, but there's some who, they're just hams and they love to share themselves. And so, when you can do that, they would be excited to want to share this with the rest of their networks. You should encourage them to do it and make it really easy for them to do. And even then, and this is something that we miss time and time again, is even asking them, okay, who do you follow for professional inspiration or inspiration generally? Because once again, they could either be a connection to a potential another micro influencer with their own network who can again really help to drive eyeballs to this video. So that is all I've got for kind of our presentation portion. I welcome to take your questions, but even before I do, thank you. Thank you for committing your careers and your lives to preserving our history, to preserving these stories so that generations from now, we know where we come from. Because as Jose, the great Filipino revolutionary says, he or she who does not know where they come from does not know where they're going. And you all very much hold the memories for so many of these important communities. So thank you. And I very much welcome your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elena. That was great. I love listening to these sessions. I always say that I am the target audience for all of these technology trainings as somebody who runs a professional organization with a small staff. So I have learned so much from all of your expertise. We do have a bunch of questions that have come in for you after your presentation. So I'm just going to start with this first one. In your experience working with museums and other arts organizations, what's often the biggest roadblock to getting started with video, and how have they overcome it?
So this is a very hilarious question and something that I even was surprised about when I do kind of a pulse check of what are your biggest fears around video. Over 65% have told me it's getting their colleagues to participate. People are camera shy. And so a lot of it has been around how are we encouraging folks around us to participate. And a lot of it just has to do in the framing of how we tell them why we're doing video, why we want them to participate. If folks potentially have that particular concern or challenge as well, I do have a couple of email templates. By all means, you can connect with me online if that through LinkedIn, if that's something that particularly resonates with you. But a lot of it too also just comes in the way that you, as someone who's leading video, ensures you are holding space for that video star to feel comfortable. And now if this is something that resonates, I don't want to take up too much time here, but I have an entire talk track and way by which I set up an interview to ensure that that person, in a matter of less than 5 minutes, because oftentimes if I'm coming into a filming situation, I don't even know that person, which means that my challenge is within 5 minutes or less, I have to get them comfortable. I have to get them smiling and laughing at me, and I have to get them ready to open up. So if this does resonate and we have more time, happy to share that talk track. If not, by all means, please connect with me and I can share some resources.
What a great insight too. I mean, yeah, seeing yourself and hearing yourself on camera and wondering what that's going to look like. I definitely see how that would be a roadblock. So I think further discussion about that maybe on our forums would be really interesting. Okay, so this next question says, I feel like a lot of us do the research on how to improve our videos about how to improve the reach of our videos after we've already made it. Should we be doing some of this research earlier in our process? That's a good one.
Yes, and whoever asked that question, I welcome some additional context as well, because typically the reason why that becomes an issue is because we're not necessarily getting as clear and specific on our actual audience for this. And I know what happens as someone who tries to navigate multiple stakeholders like you are. You have one person saying, no, it should be for educators. Another person saying, nope, it should be for our youth. And another person saying, no, it should be for our professional peers. And then what happens is you end up getting this video that's the entire kitchen sink. And like my mom always said, if you try to catch two rabbits, you never catch one. So a lot of this is around getting very, very clear on who that audience is. Because if you can get very clear that my audiences are young people between the ages of 16 to 24 who are regionally that are here, then we know exactly, okay, based on data, these are the social platforms of where they hang out. These are the other digital sandboxes, so that already you are planning for this video with this intent in mind, knowing, well, then, okay, we need to create a less than 60-second version because we know that we're putting it on Instagram, or this needs to be basically, a 30-second because we're putting it on TikTok. That's where we can start. I think that's kind of where it becomes really iffy for folks when, instead of really, trying to get people to be specific, we allow our funnel to get like this. And this is where we have to often backtrack.
So as sort of a follow-up to that question, then should people be thinking about what's popular and already being searched beforehand?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But Zinnia, what's behind that question? Maybe there's a quick example that you have where I can at least sink my teeth into that, because I think it's depending on the situation.
I don't know. I think we might have to, we'll see if further come in from that particular questioner. It's interesting how this is all happening in real time. I always say I can't walk and chew gum, so I'm trying to read while they're typing. All right, I'm going to move on and we can circle back to that one. What are some tools and practices we need to know about to make it easier to keep track of our videos and other content in order to reuse it in the future? That's a good one.
Great question. I mean, look, so a lot of this depends on what systems you already have access to. So for example, some organizations where you might be putting everything up on a SharePoint. For some, it might be a Google Drive subscription. For some, it might be a Dropbox. For some, it might be Vimeo.com. For some, it might even be YouTube, just to kind of know what your playlist is. And whoever asked that question, what we also have is not just on keeping track of videos, because honestly, that could be as easy as putting it in a Google Excel spreadsheet with the link, with some relevant tags that that you could look up and filter. So that could be kind of one way. But a lot of the questions that I get around how do we organize this isn't even just the videos, as it is, wow, we're getting all of these story ideas. Where do I actually put this? And there's actually something called a story bank. I do have a template for one that we have created for our clients. And for those of you that are interested specifically in that resource, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to share that with you as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a great resource for the toolkit for this module as well. So this was one that actually came in before the session, but what are the key differences in video production and distribution between social media platforms and websites?
At this point, pending your audience, not much. I mean, we've got a lot of folks at this point who are saying, move over website. We're going straight to TikTok. We're going straight to YouTube. In fact, we're embedding our YouTube link into the website itself. However, if I were to kind of just make some guesses and assumptions here, right? I would say if we were to think about, remember that point where I made around recycling, repurposing content, long versions, short versions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Typically on a website, we should be okay with putting that longer version. So maybe this is a welcome to our museum, and that could be like a 2 to 3 minute video. Great, that's fine. Put that on your website, because these are folks that typically are going to be engaged, are going to want to kind of potentially understand that kind of general overview. They'll be captivated to sit and watch for a 2 to 3 minute video. But you might be promoting something that's on Instagram that's 30 seconds. But that might lead them back to the website, because inevitably that's what you're trying to do, right? All of this social media stuff are glimpses, little crumbs to actually get the whole cupcake, to get a piece of cake, right? So you got little crumb cake, and then the birthday cake that is on the website. That's how we should think about this.
Food analogies are always useful too.
Now it makes me hungry for a piece of chocolate cake now.
So I think this will probably be our last question, because we're running up into time here. But what do you think about the idea of using AI to write for your organization?
It's a mixed bag, and it should always be a balance. You shouldn't just rely on it. Potentially based on time, and if you could use some support, I would use it as a foundation for then an actual human, aka yourself, who truly has the full knowledge and understanding and the verbiage to actually go at it and make the necessary revisions that you need. I'll be honest, I also was someone who was at first a little hesitant around something like a Jarvis AI. I never use it just to use it, right? I am using it potentially as a jump off point, as some ideas that are already kind of being thrown on the wall like spaghetti. And then I'm saying, okay, I will take that piece of spaghetti and that piece of spaghetti and make something with it. So if anything, I would use AI as just fodder, as inspiration, as creative crowdsourcing. If that's not something that you have access to from all your colleagues to do, I would not rely on it to officially move forward as your end all be all for messaging. So only as little bits of inspiration to help you get going.
Well, that's a great definitive answer. And I think that's sometimes what people are looking for, somebody just to say exactly what you did, instead of being like, well, maybe this or that. No, all of these suggestions that you have provided and the energy that you bring to this topic is really inspirational. And I know that there's many out there who are watching today who are like, all right, I'm ready to do it. I've got the tools. And, again, sometimes it takes listening to an expert who is really passionate about this topic to be like, all right, we're on, we're going to do it. So 100%. Thank you so much.
And really, anyone who's watching live, really, I am so thankful and grateful for what you all do. And so, for those of you who, connect with me on LinkedIn, by all means, and can just use a little bit of a brainstorm, can use a brainstorm friend and buddy. I am a nerd for the kind of stories that you tell, and for the stories that I know that are part of your collections and are part of your essence for this museum. So take me up on it, because I will bet that probably only 2 of you do. And that's okay. I will chat with 2 of you.
That's great. Well, thank you, Elena. It's really terrific presentation. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up now for the day, and just thank all of you for attending today's session on video planning, distribution. And a big thanks again to you, Elena, for working with us and talking us all through it. A few final reminders as we close out here. If you enjoyed this program, please do us a favor and share it with your networks. We really appreciate participation and hope to see you all in the chat in future programs. After each module, all 4 of the videos will be available on our website, as well as a complete toolkit of resources provided by our presenters. So you'll be able to access many of the resources that Elena talked about today. And then stay tuned to the museum-hub.org for more information on our upcoming events. Also, please remember to visit the forum on the website and ask those questions. Follow our social media. And then if you could complete that post-event satisfaction survey, we would really appreciate it. And finally, I just want to Remind everybody to join us next Thursday, which is October the 28th, for the final technical training workshop for Module 7, which will focus on emerging technology in video production. This session will be taught by Michael Owen, the principal of Media Combo in Brooklyn, New York, and will cover new and emerging video formats, tools, and platforms, such as 360 volumetric video and virtual tour services. So thank you all for attending today's session. I have enjoyed being your host and hope that everyone has a fabulous day. Bye.